Destination Medicine is a collaborative initiative of regional training hubs. With first-hand lessons learned from those who have gone before, this podcast is designed to assist and inspire anyone interested in pursuing a medical career in rural and regional Australia.
Welcome to Destination Medicine. I'm Nicole Goodman. Theresa Pitts was destined to become a doctor. More than that, she was destined to escape the city life, to live and work in the New South Wales regional centre of Wagga Wagga, which has become her home and the firm setting for her work as a general paediatrician. And she couldn't be happier, despite the fact that she was born and bred in Sydney, where she went to school and obtained her first 2 degrees. But the lure of regional life won her over, instigated by an early experience of working in remote but beautiful Flinders Island off the northeastern tip of Tasmania. But more about that in a moment. Theresa shares her story with Heather Dawson, who takes her back to the beginning. We mean, really, the beginning, and a destination given to her at birth, no less.
I think you're absolutely right. I was destined for medicine. My mum always tells the story that doctor was my first word, and it just went from there. In my first year of medicine, I was at the University of Queensland and I saw an advertisement for the John Flynn Scholarship program, and I thought, oh, that looked interesting. So I applied and I was lucky enough to get a scholarship. And when they asked, where would you like to go for your scholarship, I said, I'd like to go to the most remote part of Australia possible. And so that ended up being Flinders Island, which is just a small island of a few hundred people off the northeast coast of Tasmania. And so I was lucky enough to go there every 2 weeks, every year throughout studying medicine. And I shadowed the GP there, who was just fantastic. He had no access to any resources, so he had to develop his own x-rays and do his own blood testing on the island. And he was responsible for basically whatever walked in the door, he had to look after. So I was absolutely in awe of the job he did. And right from that moment, I thought rural medicine is what I want to do.
OK, well, can you tell us a little bit about the pathway that you took to fellowship?
Yeah, so I finished my medical degree at the University of Queensland, and in the last 2 years I had a cadetship from the Rural Doctors Network, which means that they support you in your last 2 years of medicine, and in return for that you spend your first 2 years as a doctor in training in a rural place. And the place that I chose to go was Wagga, which I have no idea now why I chose that, but in hindsight it's the best decision I ever made. So I did my first 2 years, my internship and my residency at Wagga Wagga Base Hospital, and fell in love with the community there. I enjoyed the hospital and the work and really enjoyed Wagga lifestyle. And I was tossing up what I'd specialise in after those 2 years, but paediatrics had always taken my interest, and I had a lot of support from the paediatricians in Wagga. So I then moved back to Sydney for 6 years and did my fellowship at Sydney Children's Hospital. But during that time, I never quite felt city life was for me, and I would go back out to the country for as many rotations as I could, including back to Wagga. And during that time, I also spent 6 months in a rural hospital in Uganda. And coming back from that, I thought, there's no way I can work in the city. I just love being out in the country too much and the medicine in the country. So as soon as I finished my fellowship, I had my last year in Wagga. The paediatricians used to ring me every year and say, are you finished yet? Are you finished yet? Are you coming back to Wagga? And finally in my last year I said, yes, I'm almost done. I'll do my last year of training in Wagga. And I've never left since then.
Right. Well, how would you describe your current role there, Theresa?
So I'm a general paediatrician in Wagga, which basically means that we look after all children from 0, even less than 0, to 16 years old and sometimes up to 18 years old. And that's a fantastic excuse when family and friends ask you to help them with their problems. I say, no, sorry, you're over 18. I only do under 18s. And so I work in both private practice and in the public hospital. And so we do on-call for the hospital. So we're managing acute illnesses and sick patients in hospital. We also cover deliveries and the nursery. And then I do a lot of outpatient work as well. So kids with behavioural problems or development problems, asthma, eczema. Part of my role is that I've got a special interest in allergy, and I've done some extra study there. And so I've developed one of the first rural paediatric allergy clinics around, and I've just loved being a part of that.
Sounds like you're an extremely busy person, Theresa.
It is busy, yeah, but I wouldn't have it any other way.
Well, you've chosen a rural and regional setting for your career. What do you see as the biggest benefits of that?
Oh, I find it hard to even narrow that down. So clinically, the benefits of being a regional paediatrician is the huge variety that we see. So we're exposed to all sorts of different medical issues across all the ages. So that's really interesting for us. In a regional area, you often have a lot more hands-on opportunities. So because there's less doctors, there's less people to do things, and you get to do a lot more in our line of work. I think being in a smaller hospital also means that often there's a lot more teamwork and it's a lot more collegial. So I know all the junior doctors, I know the other consultants, I know the allied health, the admin, I know the cleaners. Everybody is part of the hospital, we're all friends, and so that just makes it a very pleasant place to work. And I also find the working with the families and the continuity that we have, I often look after people's siblings or friends. I haven't quite reached the age where I'm looking after people's children's children yet, but I think that'll come with time. And that's really nice to have that continuity in a regional area, which you often don't get being in a city. And also the fact that general paediatrics is so broad. We don't specialise in anything. You have to know how to deal with asthma or a seizure or an emergency. There's whatever walks through the door, you need to know how to look after. So certainly keeps you on your toes rather than just specialising in one area of the body, which I really like. And personally, I think there's a lot of advantages to being regional as well. I absolutely love the lifestyle here in Wagga. I love the fact that you don't have to drive for more than 10 minutes to get anywhere. There's hardly any traffic lights, although Wagga has developed a peak hour now, so it's a little bit busier than it used to be. But I find that we've got all the advantages of the city here. You can go to the theatre, you can go out to shows, restaurants, wineries, and yet there's no travel. And we've got a lovely lifestyle. We live in a house on a couple of acres, and you wake up and see the hills each morning or the kangaroos in your yard, and 5 minutes later you can be at work. So there's just huge benefits regionally, I think, to working in an area like Wagga.
Okay. You'll have received many bits of advice along the way in your career, Theresa. Is there any piece of advice that's stuck with you in particular?
You do receive a lot of advice, life advice and work advice, and I think the two pieces of advice that have stuck with me most are do what makes you happy. This is something that has made me very happy, and I think no matter what path you take, it has to be something that you enjoy and that you need to enjoy waking up every day and going to work or enjoy being where you're living. And I think the other piece of advice that has stuck most with me is that things do happen for a reason. Sometimes it's hard to know why life takes us where it does or why things happen, but when I look back on my life, I feel everything has happened for a reason, and sometimes you just have to follow it. There was no real reason that I ended up in Wagga, but now that I'm here 3 months after I came back, I met a Riverina fellow, and last year we married and we're now expecting our first baby. So I never would have picked that Wagga would bring this for me, and it certainly feels like this path has happened for a reason, and I feel so grateful that it's happened that way.
You've spoken a great deal about the rewards of working in rural general paediatrics, but there are challenges, aren't there? What are the challenges?
There are a lot of challenges. I think paediatrics in general has its challenges because we're dealing with sick kids, but that can also be very rewarding, as most of the time kids bounce and kids get better. Some of the challenges about general paediatrics are that you need to know something about everything. So you need to know about every illness, every body part, treatments. So it really is a very broad area which can be challenging. You also need to know and be able to manage emergencies. So whatever walks in the door, we often have quite limited resources, but we need to be able to manage with what we can. Or sometimes we have difficulties with retrieving patients back to Sydney because of fog or difficulties for a retrieval team to come to Wagga, and so you've got to be able to manage that. There's also limited resources often. I think that's regionally and in the city, but again, it's managing with your limitations and knowing how to work around that. And I think probably one of the challenges in rural paediatrics is that often you're seeing patients who are friends of yours or colleagues' children, and that can be a little bit difficult. But I think on the flip side of all of those challenges, you can turn them into rewards. So it's really lovely to be able to get to know people that you know socially and to be able to help them through difficult times. And it's also an emergency as a way to bring people together. So I think that helps with teamwork. And, you know, the reason I've chosen general paediatrics is because I don't want to be a subspecialist. I want to know a little bit about everything and to be able to manage everything. So this enables me to do that. So I think there are a lot of challenges, but I think every challenge that you think of, you can flip it and it becomes a reward.
And what advice would you give to a medical student unsure about what career path to choose, but maybe just thinking about working in rural or regional Australia?
I think the most important thing is to talk to lots of people, try a variety of different things, but talk to others, to junior doctors or to consultants and to friends and families. And I think particularly if you're thinking of a career path regionally, it's important to talk to the regional training hubs that are across Australia. There's a lot of people that work for them that are able to help you explore different options. They can introduce you to senior doctors in the specialty of your choice and are able to give you opportunities where you can have a variety of experiences regionally in different specialties. And so I think that having access to those kind of opportunities is really important in helping you make a career path decision.
And finally, Theresa, for you, in 5-10 years' time, do you imagine that you'll still be in Wagga Wagga?
Oh, absolutely. I can't imagine living anywhere else. We've bought a lovely house and both myself and my husband are very settled here and we'd love to raise a family here. So that's our dream. And I'm so happy working both in the hospital and in outpatients that I can't imagine that I could ever possibly want to move anywhere other than Wagga or do a job anything else than a general paediatrician. So I have no doubt that the next 10, 20 years will be here, absolutely.
Dr. Theresa Pitts, General Paediatrician, Wagga Wagga. This is Destination Medicine. Thanks for listening.
Regional training hubs are supported by funding from the Australian Government under the Rural Health Multidisciplinary Training Program.